Committee, and welcome to the Met Council Environment Committee for August 13th, 2024. This is one of my favorite meetings that we have on an annual basis to hear all about what you have been up to for the last few months. But before we get into that, without objection, we have an agenda for today's meeting that we can proceed with, and we have some minutes to approve for July 23rd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Motion's been made, and is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes for July 23rd are approved. Nothing on our consent agenda today or our non-consent agenda. We can just launch right into our information item, which is 2024 Environmental Services Intern Capstone presentations. Mr. Edlund, welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Craig Edlund. I am the Assistant General Manager for Operational Services and Environmental Services. It's my privilege today to introduce our intern program's capstone presentations. So today, our talented interns will showcase their innovative work, demonstrating the skills, dedication, and contributions to our organizations and what they have learned from their experience here. So let's dive into these exciting projects and celebrate these future leaders that are among us. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Alexa Chesley, and today I'll be starting off our presentations by talking about my project that I worked on this summer, which was the identification and quantification of wastewater microbes at Eagles Point. So to introduce myself just a little bit more, my name is Alexa once again. I recently graduated from the University of St. Thomas, where I studied biochemistry and environmental science and minored in sustainability and physics. This summer, I worked as the molecular biology intern in research and development at the Metropolitan, and my project, as I mentioned before, was the identification and quantification of wastewater microbes at Eagles Point. On a more personal note, in my free time, I enjoy hiking, kayaking, drawing, and reading. So to get started, I'll mention a few of the key highlights of my project that I worked on this summer. To start off, some background. Microbes are used in wastewater to treat the water by removing nutrients that would otherwise be harmful if they entered into the environment, such as ammonia or phosphorus. So these microbes are provided lots of oxygen in the different treatment tanks to make sure that they can perform very well, but this can be really energy intensive to supply all of that oxygen all of the time. So that's where Eagles Point wastewater treatment plant comes into play, where they are testing to see if we can have a lower level of oxygen supplied to these microbes to save energy. And that's where I come into play as well. I am trying to see if I can test and see how these microbes are reacting to this lower oxygen environment. And to do this, I use a molecular biology technique called quantitative polymerase chain reaction, or qPCR. And this uses the DNA to see how much of the microbes there are and what type there are. I identified that there was a significant difference between the treatment types of the microbe populations and types, but they had similar water quality, which is good because that means we are getting similar water quality for reduced energy use, which is good for the council because we are meeting reduced energy costs as well as having more sustainable energy use. Alongside that, I also contributed to a couple of other things. I helped with a dye test at the Eagles Point wastewater treatment plant that helps determine flow rates. That was a fun thing to be a part of. I also contributed a new qPCR method to the R&D lab that they had not used before, which helped optimize our experimental methods. And alongside that, I also helped with nutrient testing at the various plants. One of my main overall takeaways from this internship, though, this summer was all of the hands-on experience and skills I was able to learn in both molecular biology and wastewater treatment. They were really invaluable to me, especially as I am planning on applying to graduate school this upcoming fall. So to kind of wrap up my presentation today, I have a picture of that dye test I mentioned. I thought it was pretty cool to be a part of, and it's not every day you get to see wastewater be bright pink. So I thought I'd share that. And I can answer any questions at this time then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Ms. Chesley?
Yeah.
Councilmember Wolf, I saw
Thank you, Mr.
first.
Chair. Was there anything that you found surprising or unexpected in your work here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I would say one of the most surprising things was how much trial and error it went through. It's kind of just the scientific process, I suppose, but really had to work towards our results and was really confused quite a bit, but that wasn't a bad thing. So had to lean into the confusion a bit.
Councilmember Carter?
Yeah, what was the timeline from the time you started and you got a reaction?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. This project started before I came on. I believe it started, I'm not certain, but from last November or December, and they've been decreasing the oxygen slowly since then and been taking samples over that time period as well. So I haven't tested those older samples, so I can't say for certain when we observed a noticeable change. But when I started testing samples, it was around late May, and that's when I noticed that there was differences between the treatment types. And recently is when we were starting to notice that the water levels the quality was similar as well.
Sounds great. Sounds like could be some projected savings over the traditional method of cleaning the water.
Yes, I'm not certain of the number at this time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a science teacher, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great questions. Councilmember Cedarburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things. I have a physics degree and an environmental engineering degree. So if you want to talk about grad schools, give me a call. And so with the dye testing, could you also measure residence time in the tank as well as compared to just flow volume through? Was there any kind of residence testing time?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm not 100% certain.
I don't know if you can do it with the dye. I did it with tritium a long time ago when it was legal to use.
That sounds familiar, and I can get you in contact with someone who would know
Yeah.
the better
And whether
answer
that
to
made a
that.
difference.
It sounds familiar at residence times, though, but
Okay.
the engineering aspect was kind of new for me, so some of the terms got lost on me
Okay.
sometimes. Thank you.
I have a question as well. So part of your role was identification of the microbes. If someone just took a scoop of wastewater, which I wouldn't recommend, but if they did, how many microbes do you think, how many different types of microbes would be in there, just roughly? I have no idea. 10, 1,000, a million? I don't really know.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair and committee members. A lot.
Yeah, that's the
lot.
perfect answer.
Yeah, very many. I looked at 3 main classes, main one being ammonia oxidizing bacteria is what they were called. And within that one class, there's many, many different species. I mainly just identified these main classes that I looked at. And
Gotcha.
even those classes are not even including all of the classes of the microbes that live in the wastewater. So
It's fascinating.
a lot.
And my information may be a few years old here, but I think we spend about $15 million on energy alone, just within environmental services. So you're right, that using those oxidizers to move all that water, water's heavy. So it takes a lot of energy to move that water, and energy costs money. And so through this internship, we're able to take that $15 million and change it to 14.5 or 14. That's huge savings for the ratepayers that we are accountable for. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Welcome. Ms. Schuler.
Hello, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Anna, and I'm really excited to tell you about my internship experience this summer, as well as my project, which focused on nutrient removal at the East Bethel wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you, and you may need to advance the slide there. There we go.
Thank you. So, like I said, my name is Anna. I'm a rising junior at Northwestern University, where I study environmental engineering. Although I go to school just outside Chicago, I was born and raised in Egan, so I was really happy to be home this summer working for the Met Council. I was a wastewater process engineering intern this summer, and like I mentioned, my project was the East Bethel wastewater treatment plant nutrient removal optimization project. So for a brief overview of my project, as well as some key highlights, the East Bethel wastewater treatment plant adds a carbon supplement to their treatment process, and this facilitates the nutrient removal. And this is working really great, but it is an additional cost for the facility, so we don't want to be using more than we absolutely need to. So my goal to address this was to develop and evaluate a way to program the flow of carbon into the plant so that we weren't overusing it, and therefore minimize the chemical costs while still ensuring proper nutrient removal. So I helped develop and implement this plan. In the end, we did find that it was ineffective. It had very little effect on the plant's operation. However, I am hopeful that this work can be built upon in the future to develop a new way to pace the carbon pump. And beyond the carbon supplement, I also did some modeling and data analysis to explore other ways to optimize the cost and effectiveness of the treatment process. But beyond the scope of my project, I felt that my time here at the Met Council this summer had a very positive impact on my career. I was able to work in an office setting, the field, and in a lab setting, which I found to be extremely enriching to have these different experiences and be able to do the kind of work that is done in each of those settings. Additionally, I experienced the complete cycle of a project through my internship. When I first started, I was informed on the problem, and then I jumped into the research. We developed and implemented this carbon flow pacing strategy, and then we analyzed the results and evaluated it. And now that we found it was ineffective, we'll go back to the research phase. And then lastly, through informational interviews and also talking to the engineers that were in the group that I was a part of this summer, I learned a lot about future career opportunities or different career paths that I could take. So like I mentioned, my name is Anna. I am a wastewater process engineering intern, and I'm available for any questions you may have at this time.
Wonderful. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. Why didn't your plan work?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, committee members. We aren't completely sure why it didn't work. Based on our analysis, what we thought, we were adding more carbon when more nutrients were coming in. We thought it might work, but it may have something to do with the machinery or the piping, just where it's not happening like we expected it to, but we're still looking into that.
Can't take you anywhere. I know. I dropped. Much other questions? Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was really fascinating that you were able to do, office work, data analysis, research, field, and lab work. Was there something surprising you learned about yourself? Did you gravitate toward one type of work over another, or you want to continue kind of getting your feet wet in all of those areas?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, committee members. One thing that I found most surprising was how much I enjoyed the lab work. Historically, in my lab classes in school, I haven't liked them very much at all. So I was a little bit nervous, but actually, when it's working towards a project, I found it to be really, really interesting. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Oh, good.
Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, as you know, often in science, you have to find out what doesn't work. I mean, I designed about 50 science programs, and only 31 survived. So everything that we think is a brilliant idea, or we think we have the right track, sometimes it doesn't work, but then that's ultimately going to lead to some great answers, and it's going to be built on the foundation that you establish. So thanks.
Yes, thank you so much.
It does sound like we have to be careful about assumptions, right? Like assuming that this thing's going to work and then finding out that it doesn't work, or assuming like, geez, I don't really like labs, but turns out I actually really do like labs. So that's good to keep an open mind on whatever you're working on. Other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Benjamin, and I am an Environmental Services Geographical Information Systems Intern, or ESGIS. I'll describe a little bit about that in a moment. And the main project I worked on was a feature snapping automation for our ES map. And I'll describe a bit more about that later as well. So, as already stated, my name is Benjamin Hawley. I am going to be a junior at the University of Minnesota Duluth, graduating in spring of 2026. My major is in biology and my minor is in GIS. My concentration for my major is in ecology, evolution, and behavior. As already mentioned, my title is Environmental Services Geographical Information Systems Intern. If you do not know what Geographical Information Systems is, or GIS, basically it's being able to show data on a map. There are some around this building. We use them in ES specifically to keep track of where interceptors are and all sorts of our other assets, such as maintenance holes or our vaults or anything that we might need to go and look at or anything that we use and own under the ground. So my project was focused on making sure this data was up to date and was correct and looked well. And this was done in two major ways. The first one is line-to-line snapping. If you look on the pictures at the bottom, the two on the left are examples of where our two pipes do not mesh up against each other on our map when they're supposed to. So on the one on the left, you can see two lines that kind of look like this. However, when you look at our pipes are connected and they aren't just randomly a little bit apart from each other under the ground. This is also the case with the second picture in the middle down below, where our two pipes are crossed like an X. This is also not a good representation of our pipes underground. This is important as we need to make sure that we have correct data. So when we send out people to go locate pipes or we give our data to other local areas, they make sure that they know our pipe is here, do not dig here, or our pipe is here, connect it to our pipe here. As the ESGIS team, we strive for an accuracy of 3 inches of where we are on the map to where it is in real life. So this is a very important part to make sure that our data is correct. The other half of this project was point to line. So something like a maintenance hole. A maintenance hole is always going to be on top of a pipe. So if you look on that picture on the upper left or upper right, you will see that it's not on top of the line when we know our maintenance holes are going to be on top of our pipes. If otherwise, it would just be a hole in the ground to nowhere, and that wouldn't be super useful. So to do this, I had to find out some tools to automate this process. This was mainly done in ArcGIS Model Builder at first, which is basically inside of this GIS software, you're having a flowchart of all the different processes you're using to identify what you have to do. So I built a flowchart and I got the answers that I wanted. One of the hardest parts of this project was balancing your false negatives and your false positives and making sure you strike a balance of this is the data I need to see, this is what I need to fix, and not something like up in East Bethel, our plant, we inject our processed water into the ground. Well, this flagged a lot of issues on my end because I'm like, oh, these don't connect to anything and they're pipes that are really close to each other. So finding a way to not have these false positives come up that flag errors was a big part of this model builder section. Then after that, I converted the ideas in the model builder into a Python code, which was a big, if you don't know Python, it's a coding language. It can do all sorts of things. I don't know too much about it because I started working with Python in this internship. So also learning a lot of Python was a big part of this internship. And then the biggest thing with coding and a lot of technology related things is troubleshooting. So then right after that, I'm like, oh, this is not working here, 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 and here. How can we go about and fix all these issues so my code can run, our tool can work, and we can identify our errors? In total, for the line-to-line snapping, we had about, I think it was 34 cases where we did not have our lines connected to our lines, and we're going to address those in the near future. And for point-to-line, we have about 500 or so things that we can fix. So through the use of the script, we can preserve the integrity of our data, and then we can further move to some more advanced tools in the future, such as one thing in GIS is called utility networks, which basically allows us to see this is where our water flows. So when we have all these things in correct working order, we can see, oh, this is where the water should go. If we have an issue here, the issue might be upstream. Let's fix that so we can move about and have a successful working system. And everyone can have their wastewater taken and treated at our plants. So, as I already stated, my name is Benjamin, or you can call me Ben. Do any of you guys have any questions?
Great presentation, Ben. Questions? Yeah, Councilmember Cedarburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Were you able to get out in the field and look to see where some of these, didn't match up, or just tour around a little bit, get out of the computing office?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for your question. Yes, there was one day that we got to go out with one of our locators and be able to kind of just look around and tour a wet well, tour a dry well. And even tomorrow, me and one of the other GIS interns are going out to view the sandstone tunnels.
Oh, neat.
So there's a lot of really cool things that I didn't expect to do in this internship. The biggest one was I was told, oh, you have confined space training and fall protection training to do. And I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that at all. That's super cool. So yeah, seeing and looking at these things that are just stories underground, it's just something that I never really thought about how deep our infrastructure could be. So to be able to see it in person was super cool.
It's really neat. Other questions? Please.
I was just wondering, what was the percentage of mismatches that you found just offhand?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chair and committee members. We have thousands of areas in our map where we have our interceptor sections. So a very low percentage. I don't know offhand what it is, but it's less than 1%.
Okay.
Well, GIS is incredibly important. I remember, I may have mentioned this to the committee members before, but I was a mayor before this gig. And I remember one time when we had a street project and we knew that we needed to redo the street, and we dug up the street. We knew there was a pipe there, but we assumed or thought that it was like 5 feet down below or a few feet down below, and it turned out to be 20 or 25 feet down below, which if you're doing a construction project, that's a whole different ball of wax and increased cost. So the work that GIS does to make sure we know what all is happening underneath our roads, which holy moly, there's a lot going on down there, is greatly appreciated. So we value your work a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Bryn Nguyen, and this summer I served as a workforce and equity intern. And the information item I'll be presenting to you tonight is my presentation on the environmental services career ladder audit that I participated in this summer. So to give a brief introduction about myself, as mentioned before, my name is Bryn. I recently graduated from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities with a major in sociology and a minor in Chinese. Over the summer, I worked as a workforce and equity intern, and my capstone project was the ES career ladder audit. So to give an overview of my ES career ladder audit, I conducted a comprehensive review of all ES careers. This involved identifying existing career ladders and promotion processes within ES. Through my analysis, I found that upward movement varies widely across ES. For example, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, the engineering career has 4 positions that increase in salary and seniority, ranging from associate engineer to principal engineer. While other careers share the same type of upward movement, many do not have the same clear-cut path for upward movement. Beyond this, I also discovered that promotion processes vary widely across departments as well. For example, certain departments have utilized career ladders to promote specific individuals, while others have utilized these career ladders to promote based upon business need, whether it be internal or external. Currently, I'm trying to answer the question of How can we make career ladders more consistent and equitable for employees? And I'm currently conducting continuing research to look into this. Overall, I would say that this project gave me the opportunity to familiarize myself with ES careers and the broader structure of the Met Council. Moving to career impact, I would say the 3 biggest takeaways I had from my internship experience were relationship building, cross-silo work, and project management. In terms of relationship building and cross-silo work, I had the unique opportunity as a workforce and equity intern to not only work within my department, but also work across departments and divisions as I worked with training and program support, asset management, metro transit, and communications. Through this experience, I learned that collaboration is truly key and so much knowledge goes untapped if you stay within your silo. I actually had a conversation with Lisa Thompson about this, which was very enlightening, but I would say that my experience working across silos and across divisions was very valuable. Beyond this, I would say my biggest area of growth was project management, as at any given point during my internship, I was completing about 3 to 5 projects at once. At least for the workforce and equity department, this is what our internship structure looked like, and I would say that it definitely helped me in terms of time management, prioritizing tasks, and also setting deadlines for myself. Overall, I would say that my experience at the Met Council was very fruitful, and I look forward to continuing to pursue equity work in the future. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm now open for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Questions? Yeah, council member.
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was really excited to hear about your experience with project management and again, the cross-silo work. And so since you've graduated, did you get, it sounds like maybe you didn't get a lot of project management type of tasks as far as your major in college. So this was really moving you into a new area where you kind of had to focus on that a little bit. Could you talk a little bit about that, or?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mr. Chair, committee members. Yeah, definitely. I would say that throughout my college experience, I did participate in a number of clubs, but mainly my experience was event planning. Whereas I would say for this internship, I had more challenges in terms of finding information, familiarizing myself with the structure of the council, and then also finding ways to solve specific problems. So I think definitely in terms of project management, time management, problem solving, those were all skills that I was able to build upon.
I can see how it would be confusing or frustrating for an employee. You mentioned there's different career ladders and different ways to go up that ladder. And it would be confusing, could be confusing or frustrating to see another person who's going up the ladder and you're not, and it's unclear why. So very much appreciate this this audit, so we're all on the same page and can act accordingly. Other questions? Well done. Thank you very much.
Time.
Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Claudia Guillotte-Wallace. I was the Water Supply Policy and Planning intern this summer with the Water Resources Department. And my project was all about supplying water supply policy and planning guidance for local plan updates and review to communities in the Twin Cities Metro. So, a little background about myself. Like I mentioned, my name is Claudia. I recently graduated from McAllister College here in St. Paul. I majored in environmental studies, minored in Spanish and biology, but really what I'm passionate about is hydrology and water governance, especially anything related to clean and accessible drinking water. So, as you can see, this has been a very fulfilling summer for me. Mm-hmm. So my main project this summer, like I mentioned, was about providing policy and planning guidance related to water supply. So the biggest part of this project was finding examples of local controls related to water efficiency. And when I say local control, that is a vague kind of umbrella term that can be used for any policy, program, incentive, initiative, really anything that relates to water efficiency. And again, just to clarify, when I say water efficiency, that can be anything related to water supply, water quality within a certain community. So the gist of the project was to create a big database and organize it by community, by county, and then something called community designations, which we pulled from the draft metro area water supply plan. So basically, we identified needs within the Twin Cities related to water supply and put all of these topics in an Excel sheet so that it would be eventually public and accessible to those who need to use it. And I looked at local water supply plans, websites of counties and individual cities, and identified these examples of these local controls and added them to the database. And we've added filters within it so that you can search based on community designation and county. So say, for example, we have a suburban edge community from Anoka County come to us and say, I'm looking for help planning for water reuse. We can point them in the right direction. And then another piece of this was finding model ordinances. So we did look a bit outside the Twin Cities metro to find controls that are maybe more proactive or progressive in terms of water supply to see how we can do better and how we can better prepare these communities for planning when they start to review their comprehensive plans and local water supply plans. So as I mentioned, I'm really passionate about hydrology and water governance, but I do have more of a technical background. So it's been really, really awesome learning about the difference between water supply in that more technical background as opposed to an actual policy and planning setting. And it's been really cool also learning new techniques about project management, strategy mapping, facilitation. It's become very obvious to me this summer that the Met Council cares about their interns and about workforce development in general. So that's been great. So in terms of the implications and future application of this project, like I mentioned, the goal was to provide guidance to communities who are seeking planning assistance. Eventually, we'd like to incorporate it into technical assistance tools like the local planning handbook and Planet. And again, in general, it'll just serve as a resource for any community who's reviewing their comprehensive plan or local water supply plan and is looking for something a little more bulk in terms of water supply efficiency. And yeah, the scope of the project could get bigger. We did a lot of outreach within the Metropolitan Council and also outside of the Met Council to see what kind of topics come up when we ask people what they need in terms of water planning. And yeah, we'll see where it goes, but it's been a very fulfilling summer and yeah. And I'm open to any questions.
I have a very first question, which is what's your favorite example of all the ones that you looked at, of all the different local controls?
Yeah.
Whether it's a carrot or a stick or something in between, you know? Is there something that stands out? It's like, wow, these
Yes.
folks really got it together.
Yes, thank you for your question, Mr. Chair. There were a couple really good examples. I would say my favorite is something called the Agricultural Chemical Reduction Effort. It comes from Dakota County. And, you know, they are a community that relies on groundwater for their drinking water source, but they also, you know, there's a lot of agricultural processes going on over there. And they identify both of those things at the same time within this program, and they talk about how we can tackle it and how we can reduce some of those things like pesticides and nitrates in their drinking water supply. And I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah.
That is cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Councilmember Wolf?
Was there anything surprising or unexpected that you found in your research?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mr. Chair, committee members. I think one thing that it shouldn't have been too surprising. It was kind of like a pleasant surprise, just something that I wasn't aware of, again, because like policy and planning is new for me. It was a little harder to find examples for some of the more rural communities. And so sometimes what I would see happen was that they would form like a sort of collaborative and they would create controls within those communities. So it was kind of surprising, but like a pleasant surprise. Yeah.
Other questions? Councilmember Carter?
Yeah, I was wondering, were you able to make any specific recommendations to local communities based on your findings?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mr. Chair, committee members. We haven't made specific recommendations to cities yet because it's still not being used outside of the Met Council, but it is being used in other ways. I recently presented this to the Green Step Cities people at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and I think that in the future we're going to collaborate with them and see how we can implement more water-related controls into Minnesota Green Step Cities, because they are providing assistance to people outside of the metro as well as within the metro. So that's kind of a big step that I think they can take next.
I'm on the Green Step Cities Steering Committee.
Nice.
So if you want an inside scoop on making sure that happens,
Awesome. Thank you.
let's connect. Thank you very much. Very impressive.
Nice.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Christian, and today I'm going to be presenting one of the projects I worked on this summer called the Environmental Compliance Form Digitization. So like I mentioned, my name is Christian. I'm currently an upcoming junior at McAllister College in St. Paul, graduating in 2 years, 2026, and I'm an environmental studies major with an urban sustainability concentration. And the project that we'll be presenting about today was the lift station environmental compliance form digitization. So first I'll start with a little bit of background and context for the project, and then I'll move on to what the goals were and like the impacts of it. So currently our environmental services lift stations, which is where we pump the water up to higher elevations so it can keep flowing as it makes its way to the treatment plants. They have environmental regulations that you have to do a monthly check for, and we collect that data and send it over to the MPCA, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And currently this is done, like I mentioned, on a weekly and on a monthly basis with paper forms that are filled out by hand, and we collect all those at my workstation, the regional maintenance facility, so we can store that data. So some of the goals with this project was to convert those monthly and weekly forms into a digital way to collect that data and store that data. So create a more efficient system for logging that data, storing it, and also making it easier for our field workers that have to do these inspections, making it easier for them to collect that data. So yeah, we created an easy way to collect that data for field workers, and it's another way that that this project was done was not every lift station has the same exact parameters for data that we collect. Some of them have wells, some of them have hazardous waste that needs to be done weekly. So a bit of the workflow that I did through this project was going through every form and filling out a spreadsheet and ultimately building out the digital form from that. And that was using Survey 123 Connect, which is one of the biggest or most used apps that we use here as a ESGIS team, the Environmental Services GIS team. And yeah, I guess one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this was the importance of metadata, because that's what's ultimately what like the data, the information about the data, like what that actually means. And so that way it's easy and accessible to fill out those forms. And at the very top, the top picture is what the forms looked like before on paper, and the bottom picture is the final result for the monthly form at lift station 70, I believe. So yeah, like I mentioned, my name was Christian. I'm an environmental services GIS intern, and now I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Has this been implemented yet or still in the works?
That's a great question. So right now we're in the testing phase of this. So over the last week, we've received a lot of good feedback from field workers and people that are going to be actually using this app. So over the next 2 weeks of my internship, we're going to be continuing to collect that feedback and making changes and tweaks as it becomes necessary to make it a better experience.
So before it was all paper, and then So we stored it, but it had to go to MPCA also, so someone had to mail it over there or drive it over there or get it over there, or they had to come and pick it up or something. Some sort of exchange.
That's
And now we can click a couple of buttons and zap away it
Yeah,
goes.
that's the final goal with this. Currently, you can access the forms every month on MetNet, but they're just a picture of the paper forms. So it would be better if we could send the MPCA better data than half the form when half of it is cut off sometimes. Yeah.
They would appreciate that, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Other questions? Please.
I just had a question. So did you kind of get the ball rolling? Is this going to be done in regard to other forms in the future?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, committee members. I believe so. I think this encompasses all the lift stations, but there's other environmental compliances for other assets that Metropolitan Council Environmental Services owns. So yeah, I think this project was a good first step in sort of creating that digitization model.
That'll be next year's internship project. Thank you very much. Impressive work.
Very nice.
Welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Devin Rhodes. I'll be talking about the combination of projects that I've completed over the summer. Focus on biosolids script, the vault depth audit, and the survey 1234 migration. So kind of an answer to your previous question for Christian. A little bit about myself. I just graduated this spring from the University of Minnesota Duluth with a degree in environment sustainability and geography with a focus on human geography, and another degree in geographic information science with a focus on disaster preparation and forgot the other part, but that'll come back to me after this, of course, right? Slight update on my spring 2026. I got accepted and I confirmed my enrollment into my grad program for Science, Technology, Environmental Policy master's degree. However, I am deferring a year, so let me be accurate with my new stuff. A little bit about myself. Hobby-wise, I enjoy learning languages. I've recently been learning Irish, Gaelic, and German because German is my wife's first language, so it's fun to connect. Aside from that, I enjoy hiking, reading, traveling, and watching movies and music. The photo that you see on there is actually in Ireland whenever we were doing the Ring of Kerry tour, so it was actually really cool to see public policies implemented to protect natural spaces like that. It's an island, so there's a lot of people in there. Which was great to bring back and kind of see and work in a public space to see how things can actually work here in Minnesota, let alone the United States. To go on to my summer projects, I'm going to start from left to right, of course. The biosolids script is a tool that is used in the Environment Services GIS team. It's really long. It's a really long script that's ran. I believe it takes about 20 minutes to run with a manual process that was in the middle, and that's kind of where I came in, was automating that manual process. From my understanding, the biosolids script is ran to see where we can take is it Blue Lake, or I did this last time, Blue Lake or East Bethel, wherever they do the biosolids, and try to figure out where we can put the fertilizer, of course. What I started with was writing a select by attribute. It's a tool that's in ArcGIS Pro to select the data based off the attribute that you want to put in, of course. And then eventually I ended up using update cursors, which is a Python command specific to geoprocessing tools inside of Pro, which is a significantly faster way to do things. If you do select by attribute, you got to select it, hold it, and move on. And if anybody's ever worked with data on this committee, that's a bit of a task whenever you have a field or data that's 500 rows and who knows how many columns. So eventually I used 2 update cursors to go through and see where we can put it, and the update cursors would then update the symbology saying this place will work. So it's kind of doing like a red light, green light, yellow light inside of the project. So for my sake, it was the first piece of code that I got to write outside of a college setting, and it worked the first time. So if you've ever written code.
Impressive.
Thank you. It was only 16 lines, so whenever I saw my co-intern Ben's script and it was like 186, I was like, wow, okay, this is feet early on. This is awesome.
You didn't shut down the airlines for a week, so that's impressive.
No, which is actually funny. I'll come back to my reason as to why I'm deferring my grad school, and that's extra funny. I got a job at a cybersecurity company, so we joke about them all the
Oh,
time.
boy.
So, but moving on from the biosolid script, we did the vault depth. So again, the select by attribute. This time it worked because I wanted to select the attributes, all the data, and then export it. So with this vault depth audit, we were trying to see, is the vault in the ground as far down or as close to the surface as it says it is? And my job was to report back yes or no, and also how far off. And if it's outside, I think it was like plus or minus 4 feet, then we would run an error report and fix it. Started with 480 lines of data, and came out to about 17 errors. Only one of them was outside of that plus or minus range, and it was 921 feet off. So,
Wow.
you know, I tend to forget how much space there is inside of a room. You know, I could be like, wow, that's 20 feet up, but 928 feet below the ground is pretty far down. Real quick, copy and paste fix. So moving forward, we did a calculation, which was the service elevation minus the downstream elevation of the asset. And I think only one of them had to reverse that because we didn't have, or the downstream was too far away to use. So that was a very interesting find, but very quick and easy. We were actually pretty accurate with our stuff aside from our points on the maps. But moving on from this project, we did a massive Survey 123 form migration. So I created 3 forms in Survey 123 and 1 in Survey 123 Connect. I didn't know how different they were. I used Survey 123 all through college, made dozens upon dozens of forms, and then I went into Connect like, yeah, this is gonna be easy. It was not as easy as I thought. Luckily for me, I knew a little bit of HTML, so I was able to like customize my forms. And working in a public space, I did not know how rigorous the details that go into a form, like ADA compliance, making sure the user experience is nice. We were going down to like the spacing in between the lines, and even color matching to make sure that we can represent the Metropolitan Council accurately. But some of these forms, one of them to start was the error reporting form. We're trying to make it more accurate or more efficient away from the SharePoint form, specifically so we could use a custom URL. So we can tie that error form onto whatever application or other tool that somebody is using, and when you click on that error, it will pull data from where you clicked it. So let's say you're looking at a point, it will pull the data from that point, so we don't have to worry about like user error, you know, case sensitive, a slight number. And from my side of things, this kind of helps out. Like, say if somebody's dyslexic, we don't have to worry about a mishap. You know, things happen. To go further, we tied into Power Automate to try to make our efficiency go. Somebody submits a form, we get a notification. Power Automate and I are not very, very good friends right now. So I think coding was a bit easier to learn than Power Automate. Kudos to anybody who's great at it, but one day I will get there, hopefully. But the biggest form that I created and worked on was the vehicle fuel log, and that was it's similar to what Christian did for his form, which was trying to digitize something that was already done on paper. But this form utilizes the digital interface so we can tie in CVS forms and files that it's an easy way to update the vehicles and the names of the employees, so we can tell how much fuel, like who's fueling what vehicle and how much from where at the regional maintenance facility. If that sounds like a thread that's going on. This is a live form from my understanding, and I think we've already done some tests and got some feedback. It sounds like everything's working out pretty good and very well. And the only other project that I didn't put on this that is worth mentioning is the wall map updates. So I've been plugging this in every moment I get. So if you have a wall map or you see a wall map somewhere, please reach out to the ESGIS team so we can get you like a fresh map. I made jokes about trying to make sure they're hot and ready, but the boxes for maps that are 6 feet big are not very affordable. So moving on, my name is Devin. I was an ESGIS intern with the Interceptor Services under Environmental Services. So now I'm open for any questions.
Fantastic job. Questions for Mr. Rhodes? Please.
Question. Did anything surprise you? I mean, as your expectation coming into the internship versus midway versus the end? I mean, any big kind of aha moments, things you liked, didn't like, things you want to continue doing, don't want to continue doing?
That's a great question. So thank you for your question, Mr. Chair and committee members. I will tell you that from studying 4 years into a GIS degree, you learn a lot of like very intense tools. So the aha was like, wow, I can do a lot of things with simple tools. I don't have to use or spend hours upon hours and a terabyte of data to help mass of populations of people. Maybe that's a mishap on my studies, but it's something that was very interesting to like realize that, you know, simple tools for simple solutions is the way to put it. Keep things simple to help out people. Aside from that, the aha was I was using a command in HTML that was causing about a 1/2 inch gap. And it took about a week before I figured out that I can use another one, and it looked very pretty. It was that simple. So I was editing fonts and colors and plenty of other sections of the tool, and it was just changing one little code. It was fun. So
It's nice when you have that aha moment, when you put in the right code and then bam, it
yeah,
looks nice.
I have like 3 rubber ducks. I have an ice cream duck, and I have one that looks like a bow, a pork bun and stuff. So I can repeat my code back to it because it's very frustrating, but it's useful to explain to somebody else, even if they're inanimate. So
Thanks.
How do you say thank you in Gaelic?
oh, it's going to be really bad because I haven't spoken in it. It's Rag Alfdu, I believe, something close like that.
All right, what he said right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Slán
Well
say
done.
bye.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Julia Melcher, and I was working on asset management plans this summer. A little bit about me. I currently attend the University of Minnesota, and I'll be graduating in 2027 with a major in data science, and I worked with the reliability specialist team on asset management plans. So a little bit about asset management plans. They're about a 20-page document that consists of different parts of how to operate assets as well as maintenance and criticality. Criticality is a rate of 1 through 9, which is how important an asset is to a plant, so 9 being the highest. If it were to break down, how quickly you would need to replace it. And then we dove into maintenance costs through Power BI to see how often different preventative maintenance were, as well as reactive maintenance, to see if there was different PMs we could do so we could have less reactive maintenance costs. And then we also looked into replacement values. Those were very hard to find. It seemed like the plants didn't really focus too much on keeping records of how much they'd spent in the past. Some of the assets are from when Seneca was created, so they're from I think 1972, so it is hard to find the paper documents for that, so that was a struggle. And then using this information, we could help create different maintenance and replacement strategies. So knowing that if an asset lasts 20 years, then we could create in the budget for the future, you could have a gap saying, oh, we need $1 million to replace a tank that will go down that year. And then career impact, being able to use Power BI to analyze data was very interesting. I'd never used Power BI before, so it was very cool to see. There was a lot of data points in there, so it was a lot to go through for sure. And then effective communication strategies. Since a lot of the information was not written down, there was a lot of going down around to different plant managers or operators to gain information, such as when something was installed or how to operate it. I'm now available for any questions.
Questions? Please, council member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you talking about going to talk to all the people who have all the information in their head, because, you know, it's amazing. I mean, how our best and our long-term employees are experts, and they just know, and so were there any surprises when you talk to people and ask questions? It's like how to get that data dump from a human brain into a Power BI and get that transferred. I think such a critical task for you to do. Could you just talk a little bit about that, or how that happened?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair and committee members. It was definitely interesting to see how the different people at the plants thought everything worked. Some have been around for a long time. They're very close to retirement age. So to get different information about how the plant has progressed throughout the years and how different things are able to be ran is very interesting to learn about.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
You need like a port to the brain.
Welcome.
Hi. So, hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is my presentation on my summer internship working in water quality and monitoring. So a little bit background information about me is I attend the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I will be an incoming senior, so I'm expected to graduate next spring, so May 2025. Within Madison, I study environmental engineering with a double minor in environmental studies and engineering for energy sustainability. So yeah, this is a little bit about my internship then. So the fun thing about this internship is that there's not really one project that you work on specifically. I primarily was split between two main categories for my work, which is monitoring and then doing internal assessments for water resources. So to dive in for monitoring, I assisted with gathering the water samples for lakes, rivers, and streams. More recently, I helped with the deployment of doing the biomonitoring program for streams by going out into Silver Creek and getting samples using a kick net. So we got macroinvertebrates, and we're going to send those to a lab by the end of September, I believe. And I also helped assemble and deploy Hestrodendes for river biomonitoring. So we deploy those, and then 6 months later, we bring those back in to look at all the bugs and insects and other life that we find in our rivers. So really fun stuff. Along with that, I helped with the toxicity testing. So I drove out to Empire, and we have an auto sampler out there. So I collected the wastewater effluent from the auto sampler, made it into a composite sample, and then that got sent out to a lab for further analysis on toxicity. So that was really cool to be able to have that experience working with the auto sampler. And then more recently, I also helped out with the CAMP program, so helping out with that, which is citizen-assisted monitoring program. So I helped go out and get those samples and analyze them prior to lab processing. So I would process them into lab. And then I also helped out with the groundwater monitoring. So when the Metro plant was flooded, I actually came in and took the measurements from the 31 wells that we were monitoring. And I actually made a map using Civil 3D, that big map photo. I use Civil 3D primarily because I have more experience in that from my educational background, and because I find it's easier to edit data points as we are sealing and making new wells sometimes. So it's really easy to lose track of 31 wells. So map was a lot easier to help navigate with that. And then for more of the internal assessments, I performed a literature review on the impact that sulfate has on wild rice. I included research in that about the impacts of iron in that relationship, because we plan to include iron in our quarterly sampling. So including that information was really critical to help with our background and say, this is why it's important. And then on top of that, I helped with revising the lakes and streams SOPs. So I took photos in the field and reformatted them so they're more suitable for a user-friendly interface. Additionally, I helped with organizing biomonitoring stream data from 2001 to 2022. Previously, it was organized by year, but I took that and I organized it by site. So we have over 15 sites, so that was a lot of data to analyze. Thankfully, I have some background in using Visual Studio Code, so I was able to use some programming to help with that go by a lot faster. And then finally, I helped with a survey project that we're doing for a more long-term research group program where we're looking at putting our field photos up so it's easier to access within water resources. So the first step to that was to interview my coworkers, and so I interviewed the field staff and asked them about their opinions and what they think would be useful for being able to access field photos. So this is that was me during groundwater monitoring. My coworker Tyler took that. It was very high level if you see the water from there. So yeah, I'm open to any questions.
What is a kick net?
A kick net, that's a really good question. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. A kick net is a long net with, it's different than a typical butterfly net or like a fish net because it's so intertwined, it's very, very like thin, so you can't get, or the lines are very close together, so you can't lose the macroinvertebrates as scuds are very small, so they can't get through that.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. When you were doing the study on sulfate on wild rice, what findings did you come up with?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So it's been scientifically proven that sulfate does have an impact on wild rice production. Most notably, it does decrease wild rice production. And so that hinders that in the respect of we're getting less of the crop. But when introducing iron into that equation, it changes everything because iron will react with that sulfate to reduce the amount of free sulfate available. So if you have a significant amount of iron, it tends to increase wild rice production because that iron will react with the sulfate. And so again, being able to monitor iron is really important, so you can take a look at that.
And I just have one question. What is a Hester Dendy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So a Hester Dendy, I had it on my last presentation, but a Hester Dendy is essentially a little cardboard, not really cardboard, but it's made out of, so it's about this big, circular cardboard disc. You have 14 discs and you have 34 spacers, I believe. So we put 3 of those out to each site, and what the macroinvertebrates will do is that they'll live on those discs, and then when we collect them in the fall, then we'll be able to analyze what's in our rivers and what we're looking at.
So it's a collection unit.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun assembling them, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really wide variety of experiences this summer, which is fantastic. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Hi, my name is Mariko Yatsuhashi, and this summer I was the water and climate intern with Water Resources Policy and Planning. A little bit about me. I just graduated from McAllister College this past spring, where I double majored in environmental studies and geography and minored in community and global health. And like I said, I've been working as the water and climate intern this summer, and I've been focusing primarily on climate adaptation as it relates to water resources. So within that theme, my primary project this summer was researching the progress and some model strategies from local jurisdictions within the region, specifically regarding climate adaptation in relation to our water resources. So there are essentially two main goals of this research project. The first was to gauge the extent of the climate planning that has been done so far by watershed management organizations and counties within the Twin Cities regions. And I approached this by doing a review of the 33 watershed management organization and 7 counties plans, where I searched for criteria including mentions of climate change, both direct and indirect, tangible climate adaptation actions, and mentions of environmental justice or equity. And the second stage of this research project was pulling out model plans from those 33 watershed management organization and 7 county plans. So I chose 2 model county plans and 4 model WMO plans, watershed management organization plans. And that decision was based mostly on which of those plans had the most advanced and progressed planning in relation to climate adaptation. And from those model plans, I pulled model strategies. So the goal of this research at the end of the day is to inform our technical assistance approach. So my product, my deliverable was approximately 15-page internal memo that I'm sending around to the water resources staff. And it will inform us of where most support is needed, but also it will allow us to learn from the progress that our local jurisdictions have already made in planning for climate adaptation and uplifts that progress that's already been made. A major limitation of the model plan approach I took is that by focusing on where the most progress has been made, it kind of concentrated on more urban areas. So something I'm working on now is finding climate adaptation strategies that are more applicable to more rural or non-urban areas. So I'm excited to kind of diversify those strategies that I found with this original project. I've also been researching other regions and their approaches to climate adaptation, specifically looking at water utilities and pulling out tools that might be useful as we provide technical assistance. And yeah, generally researching climate adaptation in the region. So throughout this summer, I've learned so much. I really enjoyed learning about adaptation in the context of the Twin Cities region, my home. It made it a lot more impactful to learn about. And before this internship, I focused more on the mitigation side of climate planning. So super informative in that aspect. I also had a lot of practice with my research, analysis, communication, and time management skills. I really enjoyed seeing the behind the scenes of the water policy plan as that was getting wrapped up for public comment. That was a new process to me, so it was really enlightening seeing what goes on behind the scenes. And finally, I met some amazing people across the council who are doing great climate work in various divisions of the council. And we went on some interesting field trips. So, for example, we went to the airport and learned about their sustainability measures there. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? I have one that's similar to what I asked before. Is there any strategy from any of the groups that you looked at that really stands out as like, wow, this one seems like it's really working or really impressive?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair and committee members. One aspect that I thought was interesting, if that answers your question, I believe it was South Washington Watershed District, had really extensive explanations of the connections between groundwater and surface water in their climate resiliency plan. So I really enjoyed that aspect of their planning, that they considered the whole system and how impacts on one area might influence other parts of our water system. So that's one thing that comes to mind. But there's a lot of really interesting strategies that span a whole range of climate impacts in my memo. Yeah.
And I've had a chance to look at the Metropolitan Airport Commission's sustainability work too, and you're right, they're doing a ton over there. It's really neat.
I had no idea all of that was going on behind the scenes.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Cool. Question?
I just have a question. So how's this internship kind of impacted where you see yourself going in the future, short term, not necessarily long term, but just have your thoughts about what you want to do next changed because of the internship, or?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, committee members. It has kind of shifted my thinking. I'm in a stage where I'm trying to figure out what graduate school, if I want to get a master's degree. And going in, like I mentioned, I was more focused on energy policy. That's where my previous internships have been focused, and energy efficiency, which I still love and find really interesting. But this internship has really focused my attention on adaptation, and especially understanding the interconnections between adaptation and mitigation. There's so many opportunities to kind of blend those two interests together. So, and also the water side of things has been really enlightening. So we'll see. Yes, thank you for the question.
Great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. I'll be speaking today on a leadership pathway program in environmental services. too far. Thank you. My name is Nicholas Feist. I attended Metropolitan State University in St. Paul and graduated in May with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a minor in project management. And this summer, I participated in a workforce and equity internship. Like many of the interns, I participated in several projects, but the one I'm sharing with you this evening is the introduction of a leadership pathway program in ES. It's currently only in a recommendation. I held interviews, conducted research, and assembled a presentation to recommend instituting this program. The program would allow a temporary promotion of workers to act in a leadership position, such as a first-level manager or supervisor. They would be supported and monitored by a mentor and a coach, and then be given maybe a grade or a ranking, evaluation would be a better term for that. This isn't a new concept. Metro Transit uses the same idea in the Leadership Academy. They introduced it in 2008, and over the last decade and a half, they've had increased measurable success, with 90% of the participants graduating and 2/3 of those participants achieving a promotion within the division. And Environmental Services also has existing leadership programs, but they're currently outsourced or use a third-party vendor. So this would be a change to focus in-house. Because they have existing leadership programs, they're used to assembling finances, interviewing and applying and finding applicants. Interesting enough, one thing that they would need to do is identify the supervisor and manager roles they would have to identify for this program. And I believe that they would look to Bryn's project earlier, the latter. I didn't know what Bryn was going to speak on this evening, but I have a feeling our manager did see that as he listed assignments for us to choose from before our internships began. Takeaways for the project, I did this part of the project wrong. I was looking at the workers. So this addresses the workers' survey, how they sometimes feel stuck or there's no upward mobility. I think that introducing this program would show that we hear their requests or desires and provide this could lead to improved productivity and improve morale. But ultimately, in a lot of my other projects that I've worked on this summer come back to the workforce and equity departmental goals of creating a environment or a work culture where people feel they are welcomed and belong. There are avenues where people can contribute to the quality work that the department does, and that they're given the opportunities to grow and develop their skills. And this program would address all three of those parts of the goal. So again, my name is Nicholas, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Nicholas, thank you so much. Council member.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how many workers did you actually interview?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair and committee members. Unfortunately, only one actual worker. Well, that depends. We're all workers in a certain degree.
Right.
It was, I did interview a lot of managers, Metro Transit, the lead role over there, Walt Joy. He oversees the Leadership Academy, and then a lot of regional administration in their LOD program, their leading in organizational development. That's where I got a lot of my information, and they led me to find more. The surveys had been taken before I started, so I was based my research off those results.
Okay.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, my name is Rachel Kim, and I'll be talking about my summer project of also writing asset management plans. So a brief introduction. I will be a rising sophomore at Carleton College in the fall. I have not declared a major yet, but I'm hoping to either major in statistics or economics with a math minor. And this summer, I was a reliability specialist intern for Environmental Services Asset Management Department along with Julia. And we both had the opportunity to write asset management plans. My focus was at the Empire plant while Julia was at Seneca. And together right now, we are currently working on a draft for the Metro LBU facility as well. So key highlights of this project, as Julia mentioned, asset management plans can get quite long. They're around 20 to 30 pages long, and they're part of asset lifecycle management, which basically is taking care of and tracking assets throughout their life cycle, including phases as the planning and development of the asset to the operational and maintenance strategies that take care of the asset throughout its lifetime, all the way to its end of life or expiration date. And there are many purposes that we hope that this document will serve. One of them including that the plants are meeting a standard level of service, so meeting their plant requirements, their permit requirements, while maintaining good relationships with the surrounding environment and community. And we also hope that this document, as it contains a lot of information on the work task costs of assets, as well as repairment or replacement costs in case anything happens. We hope that it can be referred to in the future to help assist with budget allocations, so making sure that that cost is set aside, and also just in general helping ensure financial strategy as well. So for career impact, there were a lot of beneficial experiences that I gained from this summer internship. I didn't list it in here, but namely just learning what wastewater treatment and what different processes are out there. I don't really think about what happens when I flush the toilet or what goes down the drain, so that was very interesting to learn about.
You do now.
Yeah, I definitely do. I also got to get tours of various different plants, so seeing that machinery up close. The smell was not great, but it was very fun to see up close. And I think I gained a lot of effective communication strategies throughout this experience, talking to various different operators, working with business systems analysts, because I've never had experience with Power BI before, so talking with them for the more technical side of things. Also the financial department, so various people across the council really helped gather information for these plans, which was amazing to see. It also was a great way to introduce myself to business processes and just see how everything at the council operates. And it was also a great way to explore various career paths. I had great opportunities to conduct informational interviews with many different people. So that was also very helpful to hear as well. And my name is Rachel Kim, and then I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Empire is a little newer plant than the Seneca plant. Did you have the same issues with being able to find out the costs of things when they were acquired and whatnot, or was it different?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair and committee members. So Empire is a newer plant. That was one of the main sort of challenges for finding information. Actually, on the other hand, Empire was one of the easiest plants to work with, in my opinion, because they had a better, I would say, a program built in place where a lot of their documents were moved into a source called Titania Delivery. So it's, on the other hand, for EnDrive, you have to go through many different folders that often have dead ends to find documentation, whereas in Titania Delivery, you just have a couple of filters that you need to work with to find information. So on that hand, compared to Julia, I had the advantage. Currently at Metro LBU, we're sort of running into the same problem where information can be a bit harder to source. So we're contacting different engineers, operators, for information. Everyone has been very kind up until now of providing that. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what we can do more. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question about asset management plans. So when do you think it's important to have an asset management plan? Like, you don't need an asset management plan for every asset that we own, but you definitely need it for the larger mission critical assets, but maybe not so much for less mission critical things. Is that accurate? And where's kind of that line of like, where do you need a plan and where don't you need a plan?
Yeah, I actually sort of forgot I sped over it in the plan. But yeah, the plans aim to address critical systems within the wastewater treatment process. So the systems and the physical assets that are critical for the plants to meet their permit requirements. So for instance, I was working on around 4 or 5 plans for Empire, so aeration, the aeration system, effluent pumping systems, bar screen system, and final clarifier system. So you are right, it is a big system, and then you just address like the physical assets that are related to it and operate within it. Yeah, so mostly this is physical assets. We wouldn't include anything like like a light switch. Like, I don't think, yeah, not that, but
That's what I was
generally
thinking, a pencil.
tanks or
You know,
blowers,
you don't
yeah,
need
of that sort.
Yeah, right. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting. That's a wrap. I think, is that it? That's a lot. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Keep your eyes peeled on our job board. I have a feeling this, for some of you, this may not be the last time you are in front of some of those microphones. So great work, everybody. Really impressive. And that takes us to our general manager's report.
Probably one of my most fun announcements. Next week starts the Minnesota State Fair. You all better stop by and say hi to the staff that are working on our exhibit. It's at the Eco exhibit, second most popular. They usually see about 250,000 visitors each year. So we see it as an opportunity to help educate the public, especially reaching the youngsters who are easily attracted to the grossness of what we do, right? So our exhibit is appropriately titled "Oh Poop." We have 3 shifts a day, 2 people per shift, so there'll be 6 people from ES or parts of the council each day covering the exhibit. And we've got 6 different things. One that I particularly like is an aquarium with fish in it. That includes our effluent. So fish swimming around, having a good time in our effluent is always a good thing.
Wow.
We have a sniff and guess station, so there will be several spots where you can stop if you're brave enough and see if you can identify what you're smelling. You can imagine what kinds of things might be in that sniff center. We've got some squishy fun. That's actually a giant poop sculpture representing a year's worth of a human's waste. And so you've all seen the poop
Don't make it too
emojis, right? They
enticing.
fly around on the internet, so imagine a really large one of those. On a smaller scale, we have something that represents a fatberg. So, again, the lesson to be taught there is don't put oils and grease and things like that down your drain because it causes massive problems. So there's learning with all of these. One, we have a section of a 14-foot sewer pipe so people can see how large those are and actually physically walk through it and appreciate what's, underground. Some of you were talking about GIS, what's down there. And then the last is we're going to have some video footage of the old days when the river was horrible.
Oh, my
'Cause,
God.
we think that's important for people to appreciate how good it is today, because sometimes people are heard making comments how bad it is and we need to do something about this. And there's always room for improvement, but it's not bad like it was, right? And so there's good news, and yet there's more that we can all learn and appreciate because it's all one water. So let's take care of it together.
And this is not our first time at the fair, right? No.
So I was trying to think back when, I think it was about 2018, that we partnered with PCA and had What Not to Flush. It was a really popular exhibit. We incorporated a slide, so the younger kids loved going down the slide, and they'd come into a channel of a river, and there would be things they could interact with to learn what they shouldn't put down the toilet or the sink, because you don't want it to end up in the river and other places.
Councilmember Wolf?
So is there going to be any aspect of don't flush those flushable wipes in the display this time?
Yeah, there's actually, I think there's about 3 toilets with liftable lids that you can't use, but there's a quiz, right? Like things you shouldn't put down, and the answers are underneath the lid, basically. And we're giving away a T-shirt every day that we have T-shirts made up with a little poop emoji and 3 other little emojis like send us your poop and we'll turn it into energy, fertilizer, and clean water. So we went with the emoji theme all the way.
I love it. Well, Ms. Kim, you were saying about learning about, or just kind of learning about what all happened. So now the rest of Minnesota will be able to learn the same. All right, with that, there's nothing else. We are adjourned. Thank you very